What if I told you Ned Stark's head never truly died? What if the execution was only the beginning? And in the shadows of King's Landing, something darker stirred. Something that could resurrect legacies, corrupt bloodlines, and awaken the old gods themselves. The sword came down. Ice met flesh. And in front of thousands, Eddard Stark's head rolled across the steps of the Great Sept. Sansa screamed. Arya's heart shattered. The people cheered, some with venom, some with fear. But none of them noticed what happened next. Because while all eyes followed the headless body, one man cloaked in grey caught something no one else did. A flicker, a blink. Just for a second. You saw that, right? The moment passed like smoke. Sir Eilen Payne retrieved the blade, blood still steaming in the cold air. Joffrey smirked at the chaos he'd caused. But the man in the cloak standing near the Sept's side wall didn't move. His hand twitched around a velvet pouch that pulsed once, just once, and then it stilled. He slipped away before the guards could see. Now here's where it gets insane. That head, it never reached the traitor's spike, at least not the real one. The public saw something, sure. A sewn-up imitation, well crafted by Qyburn's hands, swapped in hours after the execution. But the true head, still bleeding, still carrying the final thoughts of Lord Eddard Stark, was spirited away beneath King's Landing. Hidden in the black cells, where screams are swallowed, where whispers live longer than kings. What came next changed the realm more than the War of the Five Kings ever could. In the bowels of Maegor's holdfast, past doors no map mentions, a chamber glowed blue. The walls weren't stone, they pulsed like skin. The air reeked of iron and rot. At the center, on a pedestal made of twisted weirwood roots, lay the head, eyes closed, lips parted. And above it, chanting, not Valyrian, not Westerosi, older, colder. A tongue forgotten by both men and maesters. The cloaked man removed his hood. And you're not going to believe who he was. Varys, yes, the spider himself. You thought he served the realm. Peace, Aegon? He served survival. And in that moment, he believed only one soul could restore balance. Not Daenerys, not Stannis, not Robb, but Ned Stark. Or rather, what Ned could become. Okay, pause. Did anyone else just feel that chill? Because what happens next, it defies everything we knew about the laws of death in Westeros. And if you think the Night King was terrifying, wait until you meet what Ned became. Varys whispered a name into the severed ear. Bran, then Lyanna, then Jon. Each name glowed across the weirwood roots like fire catching on dry leaves. The eyes opened slowly, grey as ash, and in them rage, confusion, memory, not just of Winterfell but of something deeper. Visions from beyond the wall, screams in the crypts, children of the forest crying in flame, a red door, and a raven with 3 eyes watching. You still with me? Because we're just getting started. Above ground, no one knew. Robb marched to war. Catelyn wept herself dry. Arya ran with Gendry through the riverlands. But Ned's consciousness, his soul, was drifting somewhere else. Pulled between realms, locked in a dead man's head, his body rotting in the Sept's cellar. But his mind? It was learning, consuming. Hearing secrets Varys fed him nightly. Secrets of the Mad King's return plan. So of Rhaegar's journal hidden in the Red Keep, of Jon Snow's true parentage, oh yeah. Varys knew, but he didn't just want Ned to know. He wanted Ned to rise, not as a corpse, not like the Whites, but as something new, a blend of Stark honor and old blood sorcery. A weapon with memory, justice, and silence as its edge. 3 weeks later, the rituals began. Black candles. Maester chains. A drop of Targaryen blood from a stolen dagger. And something worse, a scream. Real, raw, taken from a newborn in Flea Bottom. Varys hated that part. But the sorcery didn't care. The head pulsed. The weirwood roots cracked. The walls bled. And when the final word was spoken, a name long erased from Valyrian scrolls, Ned Stark's mouth moved. I know the truth. Holy hell, right? That's when Varys realized this wasn't resurrection. This was transformation. Ned remembered everything, from the Tower of Joy to Littlefinger's betrayal, from Robert's madness to his last words to Jon. But he was no longer bound by flesh. His body was gone. But through the magic he was speaking, thinking, guiding, and slowly, with Varys's help, he began to influence the realm. How? Whispers, dreams, curses. You think Cersei's wine went bad by accident? Think again. You think Tywin's death on the toilet was fate? Try again. The dead were watching, and one of them had a plan. You still with me? Because now it gets twisted. Bran back in Winterfell. He started having dreams, not of wolves, but of voices. One voice, familiar. Hold fast. Tell Jon. At first he thought it was the three-eyed raven, but then he saw the face, severed, bleeding, eyes locked on him through the snow. Tell Jon the truth. That's when Bran fell from the tower, not pushed, pulled. The voice was trying to awaken something in him. To prepare him. Because Ned's spirit, trapped in the skull below King's Landing, was calling out. To his son, his blood. The last chance to stop the realm from drowning in fire. Meanwhile, in the crypts of Winterfell, Jon stood at his father's tomb. Or so he thought, because that wasn't Ned beneath the stone. It was an empty shell, a symbol. The real head, the real power, was beneath the capital, whispering through Varys, poisoning loyalties, seeding rebellion in the minds of the weak. And Jon? He started to hear it too. In his dreams. In the wind. In Ghost's eyes. You are not just snow, okay, deep breath, because you're not gonna believe what comes next. 3 nights before the Battle of Blackwater, Tyrion heard footsteps in the tunnels beneath the city. He followed. And in the torchlight he saw Varys, kneeling, speaking into the darkness. Tyrion laughed. He thought it was just more of the spider's drama. Until the voice answered. The lion must fall. Tyrion dropped the torch, ran, never spoke of it again. But from that day his loyalties shifted. Subtly, slowly, but purposefully. He began to doubt the Lannisters. That's how powerful Ned's voice became. And then Melisandre arrived. Oh my God. The look on her face when she sensed the magic under the Red Keep? Chills, real chills. She confronted Varys, called him a heretic, a fool. Said he was disturbing powers even Rella feared. But she wasn't just afraid. She was curious. Because her fires had shown her something too. Something she'd never understood. A man without a face. With a wolf's eyes. Speaking truths no god dared whisper. You've made a mistake, eunuch, she told him. But it may be the only way to win. And that's when everything snapped into place. Jon was the key. Not Daenerys, not Stannis, Jon. And Ned's head, his cursed, magical, whispering head, knew it. The whispers grew louder, stronger. The seeds of rebellion took root. And by the time Joffrey choked on poison, the entire board was shifting. Varys vanished. Some say he fled. Some say he was consumed by the magic he woke. But the truth? His body was found days later, eyeless, jaw locked open, clutching a raven's feather in each hand. And etched into his chest by some inhuman force were the words, "The North remembers." Pause again. Because right now I want you to ask yourself, was it revenge? Or something bigger? Because Ned Stark wasn't just seeking justice. He was seeking balance. And he wasn't alone, Arya, Bran, Jon. They each began dreaming of the same tree, the same voice, the same command. Winter is not coming. Winter is already here. And the true war? The one we never saw. It wasn't between dragons and lions. It was between the living and what the dead left behind to finish the job. Finish the job. Jon's dreams weren't just dreams anymore. They were warnings. Cold, vivid flashes of a man with no body. Only a face half-shadowed, whispering truths Jon wasn't ready to hear. Not Snow, the voice said. Not Stark. Not safe. And every time he woke, Ghost was pacing, snarling at nothing, eyes fixed on a corner of the room that remained darker than the rest. You feel that? That's not a coincidence. That's legacy pulling its claws through bloodlines. At Castle Black, the wind carried strange messages. Crows cried louder. Fires burned slower. And Jon couldn't shake the feeling that the wall was hiding something, not beyond but beneath, as if the ice had frozen secrets older than the first men, secrets tied to his father's head, or what remained of it. Meanwhile, far from the north, Melisandre had crossed the narrow sea. She stood before Daenerys Targaryen, not as a servant, but as a warning. Her red eyes locked with the Dragon Queen's, and she said 3 words, "He is speaking." Daenerys laughed. Who? The father of the wolf, the beheaded man, the wronged blood. That laughter died quick. Okay, wait, quick poll. How many of you just got goosebumps imagining Daenerys hearing about Ned Stark again from a Red Priestess in Essos while plotting her conquest? Yeah, it's about to get wild because Melisandre didn't come to worship. She came to stop something. She claimed a power was rising from Westeros that threatened both fire and ice. And at the center of it was a soul who refused to die, a soul who remembered everything, including the moment he knelt before Robert, the moment he held Jon in his arms, the moment he heard the mountain laughing as Elia Martell screamed. That soul was now feeding into the minds of 3 people: Jon, Bran, Arya. And then, without warning, Bran stopped speaking. At Winterfell, Maester Luwin found the boy catatonic, eyes white, limbs frozen, breathing shallow. His mind had gone somewhere else, someplace only the Weirwoods understood, someplace where time didn't move forward or back. And in that place, Bran stood before the same stone table where Ned's head now sat, glowing faintly, whispering names from the past. Benjen, Ser Arthur Jon, Rhaegar, and one name louder than the rest, Mira. Wait, hold up. This is where it gets unreal. Because Mira Reed, the daughter of Howland Reed, Ned's last living Tower of Joy witness, was already traveling north searching for Bran. But what she didn't know was that the dreams weren't only reaching her. They were waking something else in the neck. The Crannog men spoke of ghosts rising from the marshes, of wolves howling like men, of her father speaking to shadows. And guess whose voice those shadows used? Tell her. He lied. Now pause. Deep breath. Think about what that means. Ned Stark lied. To his wife. His brother. His best friend. The realm. And now that truth, twisted by death magic and dark ritual, was out in the open, it was unraveling honor from the inside out. Varys may have lit the match, but Ned's voice was the wildfire. At King's Landing, Cersei felt it too. Dreams of her children drowning in snow, of wolves dragging Lannister banners into the mud. She ordered every sept filled with candles. The High Septon declared the crypts of Winterfell cursed. Qyburn offered a solution, an ancient charm stolen from Old Town. But the moment he approached the black cells where Ned's head had once been, his heart exploded in his chest. No wound, no attacker, just silence, followed by a whisper. The lion must fall. I swear that gave me chills again just typing it. But it wasn't just haunting, it was intentional. Ned's head, through whatever power Varys had unleashed, was becoming a weapon of prophecy. Not the kind that tells the future, the kind that bends it. Back at the wall, Jon couldn't sleep. The voice came louder now, clearer. It told him of Rhaegar, of Lyanna, of a tower soaked in blood. Ask Sam, it said. He knows. And that's when everything broke open, because Sam had read something in one of the restricted tomes, a marriage annulment, a child born in secret. And suddenly Jon's world tilted sideways. He wasn't Ned's bastard. He was the heir to the Iron Throne. Don't tell anyone, Sam whispered. Jon nodded. Then the voice came again, clear, harsh. Tell Arya. What does that even mean? Why Arya? Why not Daenerys? Why not the Lords of the North? Because Arya was changing. Fast. She was already deep in her faceless training in Braavos, but something pulled her west, something she couldn't name. Every night the same vision, a weirwood, ahead, and her father's voice crying not in pain but in fury. They lied, little wolf. They all lied. And when she removed her mask for the final time, she didn't just return home, she returned for vengeance. Okay, breathe again, because from here on nothing is safe. Back in the capital, Tommen was having visions. Yes, even Tommen. In his sleep, he murmured names his maesters didn't understand. Names no child should know. Howland Reed, Brandon, Ser Gerald. And then, during a quiet dinner, he looked Cersei dead in the eye and asked, "Why did father kill the good man?" Cersei froze. "What good man?" "The one with the voice. The one who says, 'You'll burn.'" And just like that, the lioness cracked. She ordered the tunnels beneath the Red Keep sealed, burned, collapsed. She tried to destroy the chamber Varys once used for the ritual, but the fires wouldn't catch. The stones bled. The air screamed. And from the ashes came a name etched into the floorboards in red. Jon Holish. Jon received the raven 3 days later. No seal, just 3 words. Father is awake. He rode through the night, alone, ghost beside him. No food, no water. He didn't stop until he reached the heart tree of Winterfell, where Bran had just woken, eyes grey as smoke, whispering truths no boy should know. Arya arrived an hour later, and the 3 Stark children, scattered by war, bloodied by pain, reshaped by death, stood before the godswood once more. And from the winds, through the snow, in the voice of a man long dead, they heard, "It is time." The long night wasn't the only thing rising. Something beneath it was stirring. a forgotten force older than the Night King, a voice that had seen the doom of Valyria, that had watched dragons fall, that had guarded secrets in crypts deeper than any Maester knew existed. And Ned Stark, his head preserved in cursed roots, empowered by forbidden blood magic, was the key to unlocking it. You thought his execution was the end. It was just the beginning. It was just the beginning. The sky over Winterfell turned black without warning. No clouds, no snow. Just a crushing darkness, thick like smoke, swallowing the stars one by one. Arya was the first to move. She knelt beneath the heart tree, pressed her fingers into the frost-covered roots and whispered her father's name. The wind howled in reply. Bran didn't blink. His eyes had gone pale as milk, his lips muttering words in a tongue neither Jon nor Arya had ever heard before. The weirwood leaves above him shivered without wind. And just like that, the ground cracked, not loudly, not violently, but deep. Like something old had just exhaled beneath the snow, Jon reached for his sword, not because of danger, but because his body felt the truth before his mind could speak it. They weren't alone anymore. Not in the Godswood. Not in Winterfell. Not in Westeros, and the worst part? Whatever had joined them wasn't alive. Okay, pause. You remember that feeling you got when the Night King raised his arms and the dead stood behind Jon? That sense of total doom? Multiply that by 10. Because this wasn't just death, it was unrest. A soul that had been betrayed, twisted, desecrated, and now wanted to reshape the realm in its image. And Ned Stark's voice, louder than ever, said 3 words, the crypts first. Jon didn't hesitate. He knew what that meant. The crypts of Winterfell, the very place he'd once thought was safest, were hiding something. And his father wanted it found. They lit no torches. They brought no guards. Arya insisted on going ahead, blade drawn. Ghost snarled the entire descent, his eyes locked on the shadows. And as they passed the statues of fallen Starks, a chill heavier than winter gripped them. That's when Bran said it. It's not just father. It's all of them. And holy hell, he wasn't wrong. The roots of the old magic had dug deep, far deeper than anyone had realized, through the bones of generations, through crypts older than the castle, down to a cavern that had no place in any map, sealed behind stone and time, until now, because as they reached the end of the tunnel, the stone split, just enough for a single body to pass. And the smell? Burned flesh, cold iron, wet earth, and weirwood sap. Jon stepped through first. Then Arya, then Bran, eyes still white, not walking, gliding. And what they saw? A tree, not like the one above, not peaceful, not sacred. This one was black, twisted, alive, but wrong. Roots slithered like veins. Faces carved in the bark screamed silently, mouths open, eyes bleeding sap. And at the base, half buried in glowing ice, was Ned Stark's head, still breathing. It looked like him. But the moment Arya whispered, "Father," the head opened its eyes. And they weren't the eyes of the Warden of the North. They were older, wiser, broken and furious. Too late, it said. They've already woken. Jon tried to step closer, but the roots moved, protective. Not hostile, just desperate. Like they knew time was running out. What woke? Arya asked. The ones who lied. The ones who hid the truth beneath crowns and banners. The ones who burned the world to cover their sins. And then the ground above shook, not a tremor. A scream. King's Landing was burning. Daenerys had begun her conquest, and the voice from Ned's head whispered, "She is the last fire. And fire must die." That's when Jon understood everything. This wasn't about revenge or honor, or family. This was correction. Ned Stark's soul, warped by magic and sharpened by betrayal, had reached a decision no one saw coming. Burn the lies. Freeze the truth. Begin again, and guess who he needed to do it? Jon, not as king, not as Targaryen, but as the Blade. You will kill her, the voice said, and take the throne not to rule, but to bury it. Arya stared at Jon. Can you do that? Jon didn't answer. He looked down at Longclaw, the blade he once thought was meant to defend the realm. And in the blade's reflection, he saw the Red Keep in flames. I have to. The next morning they rode. Bran stayed behind. His role was no longer physical. He would speak through ravens now, through dreams, through fire. He had become the Eye, and nothing escaped him. Arya vanished into the woods, her own mission brewing. No one asked what. No one dared. And Jon? He rode south alone to find the woman he had once loved, and kill her. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, Daenerys stood before the throne, Drogon roaring above. The city lay in ruins. Cersei was dead, Tyrion imprisoned, and the people. They didn't cheer. They wept, because the queen who promised freedom had delivered ash, and in the shadows of the throne room, a whisper echoed through the stone. "Do you hear him now?" She turned. No one there, but the voice came again. "Do you see what you've become?" And in the melted gold of the throne's edge, her reflection shifted, not herself. Ned Stark. Smiling, broken, burned, and behind her, the cold breath of death followed. King's Landing was smoke, not just from dragonfire, but from the rot of something ancient returning. The bells had stopped. The screams had faded, but the ash never fell. It hung in the air like a curse that refused to settle. Jon rode through the city in silence. No soldiers stopped him. No peasants dared speak. Even Grey Worm, standing over the last Lannister prisoner, said nothing when Jon passed, because something in Jon's face had changed. It wasn't grief. It wasn't rage. It was clarity. And clarity in this world is terrifying. Drogon circled above. His shadow flickered across the broken domes of the Red Keep like a dying god. Daenerys stood where the throne used to be. All that remained was twisted metal and cracked stone. She didn't sit. She didn't smile. She waited, and when Jon entered, the silence didn't break. It stretched. "Did you come to kill me?" she asked. Jon didn't blink. "I came to ask if you remember who you were before all this." Her eyes narrowed. "Before?" "Before fire. Before war. Before whispers in your head told you the world owed you a crown. You feel that? That sharp twist? That's not just a confrontation. That's two destinies crashing into each other, and one of them has to die." Daenerys stepped forward. "They crucified my people. They raped my mother. They laughed at my brother. The world was fire long before I lit it, and now it's ash," Jon said. "What's left to rule?" She looked away. "But only for a breath. You think you're better?" she asked. "You're not even who you think you are." Jon didn't flinch. "I know who I am now. Do you?" Her voice cracked like glass. "Then why do I still see her in your eyes?" And that's when he felt it, the whisper. Now, it didn't come from behind, not above. From within, Ned Stark's voice, cold, steady, commanding. Jon moved fast. Too fast. Too sure. His blade slid beneath her ribs before her eyes even registered betrayal. Her breath hitched. Her knees buckled. And in that final moment, she smiled. "You're just like me." Then silence, no scream, no fire, no fury. Just the sound of a dragon landing outside and a kingdom realizing it had no queen and no future. Okay, pause. Did you feel that punch to the gut? Because now, things get ugly. Drogon didn't burn Jon. He looked at the body, he looked at Jon, and then he howled, not a roar, a dirge. And from the belly of that cry, something else awakened. Something beneath the Red Keep. Something older than Targaryens. Something that remembered the first fire. A scream answered Drogon from below. The head was moving again. Yes, Ned Stark's head, still buried beneath Winterfell's black tree, still pulsing with dark blood. The moment Daenerys died, it twitched. The eyes opened wider. The bark split around it and it spoke. She is gone. The fire is gone. The truth must be born. Bran, thousands of miles away, jolted upright. His mouth moved without consent. It begins now. Arya, halfway through the Westerlands, felt her hand twitch toward her blade. And Jon felt nothing. That was the most terrifying part. He didn't cry, didn't speak, didn't pray, because something inside him had been taken. The moment the blade left Daenerys' body, a thread inside Jon snapped. And in its place, something colder began to grow. The roots had claimed him too. Did you expect redemption? A kiss goodbye? This isn't a love story. This is the unraveling of a world that was built on lies, and one dead man who refused to let it stay that way. The Unsullied dragged Jon away. They didn't speak. They didn't have to. Tyrion met him at the dungeon steps. "You did it," he said. Jon nodded. Tyrion shook his head. "You think it's over?" And Jon replied, "No, I think it just started, because up north, the dead were moving, not whites, not White Walkers, the Stark dead. In the crypts, the old bones stirred, not with hunger, with purpose. The tree's roots had spread. Through coffins, through skulls, through memories, and every Stark who had ever sworn to protect the realm was waking up to finish the oath, even the ones whose names were never carved in stone, especially her, Lyanna Stark. Yes, that Lyanna. You think she died screaming? So she died swearing, and now her soul, bound in ice, rage, and grief, had joined the voice beneath the weirwood. Her scream was the one that cracked the foundations of the Godswood that night, and her whisper reached Arya in the dark. Finish what they couldn't. Arya turned west, not to Storm's End, not to Old Town, to Valyria, because the final lie was born in fire, and only there could it be burned. You still with me? You better be. Because the next part? Bran takes flight, Arya takes a name, and Jon becomes the thing he swore never to be, a king made by death. Never to be, a king made by death. Tyrion sat in the dark, not by choice. The dungeons beneath King's Landing were colder now, not just physically but spiritually. It was like the stones had started remembering pain, and that pain whispered to him through the silence. You knew. You always knew. He blinked. Who's there? No answer. Just the echo of his own breath. Just the thrum of distant wind through broken tunnels. But then he saw it. A root, a single blackened tendril of weirwood root curling under the stone like a vein. It pulsed once, like a heartbeat. Then he heard the voice again, not loud. Not outside, inside. You stood by while Ned died. Laughed at the fool. Now you wear the chains. Tyrion stood, heart pounding. You're dead, am I? The voice said. Or are you finally hearing the realm speak? Okay, pause. Just think about this. What happens when guilt becomes a weapon? When memories become living things? Because right now the people of Westeros aren't just haunted by mistakes. They're being hunted by them. And Ned Stark's corrupted soul is leading the charge. Meanwhile, far away Arya Stark stood at the edge of Valyria. Not the ruined, cursed city the world feared, but deeper. Beneath it a fissure revealed only to her, opened by a whisper she'd heard in her dreams for weeks now. Below the fire, beneath the screams. That's where the truth sleeps. She descended, no guards, no light. Just her and the blade her father once gave her. Needle. But when she reached the bottom of the black chasm, needle bent in her hand. Melted. Because Valyrian fire recognized what followed her down. A Stark soul soaked in dark magic, and at the heart of that cavern, a pool of molten memory waited. Faces floated in it, visions, dragons, children, towers, crowns, and in the middle, a heart, still beating, still on fire, not Daenerys's, not Aegon's, Rhaegar's. And then the voice came again. Do you see it now? And Arya understood everything they'd been told about Robert's rebellion, about Rhaegar, Lyanna, the Targaryens. It was built on a lie, and lies, when burned long enough, become the truth, unless someone kills the fire. And that was Arya's purpose now, not revenge, not justice, correction. Meanwhile, in the north, Jon Snow had returned to Winterfell, but he wasn't alone. He brought ashes, not Daenerys's body. No, that was long gone. Drogon had vanished east with her remains, but Jon carried something else. Her crown, melted, twisted, still smoking. He laid it at the foot of the Godswood and said nothing. Bran waited there, eyes closed, arms limp, his body pale and stiff as stone. But when Jon spoke, Bran's lips moved. Did she scream? Bran asked. Jon looked at him. No, Bran's voice lowered. That's worse. The silence held for too long. Then Bran said the one thing Jon never expected. You killed her because father told you to. Jon turned away. He's dead. Bran opened his eyes. They were no longer Bran's. They were white, hollow, old. No, he isn't. And then the ground opened again, not violently, not loud, just enough. The black tree in the crypts cracked. Roots twisted toward the surface, and through them came faces, dozens, hundreds, Stark faces, eyes open. Not whites, not reanimated corpses, souls, memories. Every oath the Starks had ever sworn, rising now to be collected. And Ned's voice, his final form, boomed from the roots. We are winter. We are truth. And we will bury the lies beneath our roots. That's when the snows began to fall again. Not soft, vicious, a storm not born of weather but of will, because winter wasn't coming anymore. Winter was here. And it was angry. Okay, breathe. Because this next moment, it shatters prophecy itself. Samwell Tarly, hiding in the shadows of Old Town, finally translated the last page of a book no Meister ever dared read aloud. It detailed a myth. When the blood of the Stark is mixed with the fire of Valyria, the tree will bleed, and the world will bleed with it. And guess what? That's exactly what had happened. Ned's twisted head had been soaked in Targaryen fire. Varys's ritual. The roots. The whispers. It all fed the tree, and now the tree wanted everything back, every lie, every throne, every crown, and it sent Jon Snow to collect. But Jon didn't want the throne. He wanted the end. He stood at the gates of the Vale, sword in hand, and said one thing to Lord Royce. There are no kingdoms anymore, only debts, and when the Vale refused, he burned it. Not with fire, with snow. A blizzard so cold the gates froze from the inside. And the people? They knelt, not out of loyalty, out of survival. He wasn't the prince that was promised. He was the heir of the end. Meanwhile, Arya returned from Valyria, empty-handed but different. Her eyes now flickered with shadows. Her blade? No longer steel, it was made of frozen fire, and she whispered one name. Aegon, not Jon, not Snow Aegon. Targaryen, the last name on her list, because she knew what was coming. And if he couldn't stop the voice, she would stop him. She would stop him. Winterfell no longer felt like home. It felt like a graveyard humming with breath. Not life, but something colder, something watching. The black roots of the godswood now reached every corridor, every stone floor, every banister. And in the middle of it all stood Jon, silent, hands wrapped around the hilt of Longclaw like it was the only thing keeping his body from falling apart. He hadn't slept since Daenerys died. He hadn't spoken since Arya returned. She stood at the edge of the godswood now, face half covered, blade pulsing with faint orange-blue fire. Not flame, not ice, something that didn't belong in either world. The moment she crossed the threshold, the tree reacted, not violently but warily. The faces in the bark twitched. Eyes wept fresh sap. Jon looked at her. "You're here to stop me." Arya didn't nod, didn't move. "You hear it too," she said. "The voice," she nodded. "It's louder now." Jon breathed in through his nose. "I don't know if it's father anymore." Arya's grip tightened. "I don't think it ever was." And there it was, the truth no one wanted to speak. That whatever had returned under the roots of Winterfell, it wasn't just Ned Stark reborn. It was every pain he never spoke, every lie he had to carry, every silent scream he swallowed to keep the realm from falling apart. That voice had been forged from honor, but fed by betrayal. It didn't want peace anymore. It wanted reversal. Bran arrived last, or rather, was carried. His eyes were shut, mouth whispering, crows circling overhead. The ravens didn't scream anymore when they saw him. They landed on his chair, and... As the wind picked up, Bran spoke one final truth. There was no promised prince, only punishment. And from the ground below, the tree opened, not like bark splitting, like flesh parting. A hole opened in the earth, deep, endless, roots spiraling like rib cages, and from that abyss rose a figure, tall, hooded, body wrapped in dead Stark banners, sword in each hand, not a ghost, not a man, not a White Walker, a judge. That's what the old gods used to send before the first men knew how to pray. Arya froze. "Is that him?" Jon's eyes flicked. "I don't know." The judge didn't speak, but the voice did. From the hole, from the sky, from inside them. The throne is broken, but the world still remembers the lie. And then the snow vanished, just gone. The air turned hot. Not from fire, from truth, burning through everything false. Suddenly, all across Westeros, people remembered things they never lived. Cersei's maids dreamed of Lyanna bleeding on stone. Old men in Dorne remembered Rhaegar's voice calling a name he never spoke aloud. Children in Flea Bottom wept over wolves they'd never seen. The realm's memory was being rewritten, corrected, as if the dead were stitching truth into time. And Jon felt himself slipping. "You feel it?" Arya said. "It's trying to make you do it." Jon blinked. "Do what?" Arya stepped closer. "Erase it all. That was the final plan, not vengeance, not justice, oblivion." The voice didn't want Jon to rule or to fix the realm. It wanted him to end it, to wipe out the houses, the bloodlines, the thrones, the names, to burn down the page and leave only snow. Arya moved fast, faster than she ever had. Blade drawn, fire singing. She drove it toward Jon's chest, not to kill, but to break the thread. But the judge stopped her, with one hand. No sound, no blood. Just pause. Time froze. The wind. The snow. The trees, even Bran's ravens, froze mid-wing beat, and then Jon stepped forward, past the judge, past the hole, into the root. He looked up. "I am not your heir." And the voice? It broke. It screamed. It howled like 1,000 wolves dying at once. Because Jon had said no. He could have ended the world. Instead, he ended the voice. He took Longclaw. He drove it not into himself, not into Arya, not into the judge, but into the black heart of the tree. And with one final breath, he whispered, "We are not your lies anymore." The tree shattered. Roots exploded. The voice cut off mid-scream, and just like that, the snow returned, but gentler. The wind softer. Arya exhaled. Bran slumped over, finally asleep. And Jon fell. Not dead, but done. No crown, no songs, just silence. The realm slowly forgot the voice. The tree withered. The black roots shrank, and deep in the gods' wood one final whisper echoed, "Good. Let them forget." Because that's all the dead ever wanted. Not vengeance, not power, just rest. And now they had it. The end.